will last for already an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. And before we move on to the questions, one more important thing. Professor Ferhojgen is not on an official visit here, so you should keep it in mind. It doesn't mean you cannot ask questions which you take an interest in, but still, that's an important thing to remember. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Professor Ferhojgen's biography, but let me just remind the most important things from the bio, which is huge. Professor Güntera Ferhojgen is a German politician who was Secretary General of the Free Democratic Party, but in 1982 he left the party in protest and joined the Social Democrats. From 1983 to 1999 he was member of the Parliament of Germany. He served as Minister of State in the Department of Foreign Affairs from 1998 to 1999. And in 1999, he left the Parliament and became European Commissioner for Enlargement of the EU. And that's where he presided over the accession of 10 new member states in 2004. And that's probably the post which we here in Belarus know Professor Ferhojgen for. From 2004 to 2010, he served his second term as a European Commissioner representing Germany. He was responsible for the enterprise and industry portfolio. Also, during those years, he was one of the vice presidents of the European Commission. And now, apart from his many other engagements, Professor Ferhojgen is director of the Karl Friedrich Goethe College for Good Governance. And my first question, Mr. Ferhojgen, is very simple. Why are you here? It's not that often that we in Belarus have such high-ranking officials or former officials visiting. So what's the purpose?
I have two answers. One is the personal and extremely true.
I have two answers. First answer is personal and extremely true, and the second is, let me say, more official and also true. The first answer is because I was never here. I had the feeling that something was missing in my life, that I have not seen such an important and interesting country like Belarus. I could never make it to come to this country during my active political life, so I used the first opportunity to come now, really out of curiosity. I simply want to know how does this country look like, how are the people, and how is the atmosphere in this country. And the second is, of course, the official reason to make the program of the Günterem College for Good Governance better known in Belarus. The Günterem College for Good Governance is open for young professionals from the public sector who will be eventually in leading positions. And it is about, I would call it personality building. Yeah? It's about commitment, accountability, responsibility. And the name Gürdeler, in that sense, is a program, because Karl Friedrich Gürdeler was a leading representative of the German resistance against Hitler. He was foreseen to be the Chancellor of Germany in the case that the coup against Hitler was successful, but as you know, the coup was not successful. That was a catastrophe for Germany, but also a catastrophe for your country and for the city. And Gürdeler was finally murdered by the Nazis. And before the Nazi rule, he was the mayor of the famous city of Leipzig, and he had a strong reputation being one of the most capable administrators in Germany. So the name has a meaning. Here, and he was a personal friend of Robert Bosch. Robert Bosch is the founder of the Robert Bosch company, which is one of the world's biggest supplier in automotive technology and several other technologies. So that is the connection. And the Gürtel College has two parts. One part is the Summer Academy in Berlin, and the other part is a project that has to be developed by every participant and will be supported and accompanied by the college. And participants shall come from countries of the Eastern neighborhood, plus Russian Federation, plus Turkey. And for me it is very important to get high quality applications from Belarus. That's the reason why I have delivered 2 lectures already today, and one of the reasons why we have the meeting tonight.
And what does a young prospective Belarusian professional need to have or to do in order to qualify for this program?
What is needed is good knowledge in German language, because the Summer Academy is held in German. But if the language skills need to be refreshed a little bit, we can organize that before finance that before the Summer Academy starts. But without German good knowledge in German, it makes no sense to apply. Second, should be graduated and should already be in a job, on a job, so not student, because there are different programs for students and different programs for people of the private sector. This is especially for young professionals in the public sector. But in a wider sense, so that not only mean administration, state administration, or local administration, also NGOs, academia, or other public institutions.
Well, you can always find more details about the program. We have special leaflets here, and you can also ask some of us will provide more information. We only encourage all of those who qualify for the program to apply, because we do need good governance professionals who can bring this good governance forward. But now let's move to the title and to the topic of this event, the present day and the future of the European Union. And let me start with something very vague and very broad. These days, the World Economic Forum is taking place in Davos. Belarus is unfortunately not represented there, so we consider this event to be a small Davos. But I'm following the events and statements there. And Christine Lagarde, who is now the managing director of the IMF, said something which basically resonates with other opinions. She said, Europe faces issues, but its destiny shines through the smoke and fog. I'm optimistic about Europe's future. Professor, optimistic again. Professor, are you optimistic about Europe's future?
Absolutely. But first of all, let me say, one of these advantages of my retirement is that I have no longer to go to Davos. Yeah, it's terrible. It's a terrible event, and I prefer it to be here. Now, about the principal outlook for the European Union. I know that many people have a very gloomy picture here. I can give you one example. The National Intelligence Center of the United States, which is a kind of umbrella organization for all the American intelligence services. I really wonder whether the Americans really know how many intelligence agencies they have. We take it for granted that they don't. And this umbrella organization publishes long-term studies dealing with global trends. And it published a study a couple of years ago dealing with global trends until 2030. And the word Europe is, you'll find it first time on page 126. And they present different scenarios, and they say the most likely scenario for Europe, and especially for the European Union, is a further political decline. Yeah, the political decline, losing influence and political weight, and also an economic decline in relative terms, so compared to the economic rise of other regions of the world. This is the most likely scenario, they say, and the reason for that is the political uncertainty about the future of the European integration, the weak management, the weak crisis management that we see today, structural deficiencies in the economy, in particular in research and development, and so on and so on. So very negative future. I don't share that. If I look at the process of European integration from the very beginning, I see a very clear tendency, absolutely clear tendency. The tendency is a very strong, dynamic development of getting more and deeper integration. You remember it started in 1957, just 6 member states, had a very, very limited purpose, customs union and a common market. And we have always seen periods of new momentum, of strong momentum, and we have seen periods where there was a kind of stagnation, where decision-making was blocked, but in some cases the term crisis was used. It's quite normal, and my reason why I am very optimistic that this development will continue and that this dynamic process will not be interrupted is simply that nobody in the European Union has an interest to stop it, and nobody can have an interest to stop it. And you see the American and British media, and they tell us since years, since years and years, they tell us the European Union will collapse, the euro is a disaster, the euro will disappear. I tell you, at the end of the year, we will have the European Union as it is today, we will have the monetary union, we will have the euro, Greece will be a member of the European Union and the monetary union, and there are a lot of countries who want to join, and nobody wants to leave, because there is a growing awareness everywhere in the European Union that the challenges of the 21st century are simply too big for a single country. And this is also true, by the way, for the countries which are not in the European Union. I have given a lecture this morning concentrating on this issue. What are the challenges of the changing world of the 21st century? And the short answer is the only way to maintain our European way of life in the 21st century is to be politically and economically competitive. Politically and economically competitive, and in order to be competitive at a global scale, we need to be politically strong, and political strength is a result of unity, and we need to be economically strong, and economic strength is a result of very far-reaching structural reforms. So I am optimistic, and allow me a very personal remark here. Yeah. I was born in 1944. I'm very relatively old, as you can see. That was the last year of the Second World War. Of course, I was a baby in this last year of the war, and I cannot remember the war. But what I do remember exactly is the situation in a country, how it was to live in a country, to grow up in a country that was destroyed in every respect. Yeah, in every respect. Weeds, also morally and politically destroyed. I remember how life in such a country was. And I belong to the generation of European policymakers who are absolutely convinced that we have to do everything that we have to do everything to prevent it from happening again. Yeah? So this is such a strong motivation that can never change. And therefore for me it's easy. I know for younger generation it's more difficult. The younger generation, it's very difficult to understand how it could happen that young people in Europe were misled, misguided to kill each other. And I think for the young generation today, the fact that we live in peace and war disappeared from our part of the world is self-evident. But I tell you, it's not so. It's a result of political decisions, and it's a result of a strong political will not to let it happen again. That's the reason why I think we should stay.
Soon after your retirement as commissioner, you gave an interview to Spiegel Online, where you said, I quote, "The EU has no vision of where we're heading. Has anything changed since 2010? Is there anything that changed that makes you optimistic?"
This is, we are in an interim period. My personal view is that before we can ask the question what the next steps are, we need to deal with the crisis that we have, the economic and financial crisis, and also political crisis, and the confidence crisis, and the leadership crisis. But it is not a currency crisis. It's something different. I think that we are now in the 5th year of crisis management. I think that now the most important instruments are in place, and I think that we have that sooner or later now, during the course of this year, the situation will be manageable and the problem will be finally solved. But let me see, we will have it under control. I'm very optimistic. We will have it under control. And then, of course, the question comes. What comes next? And what are the lessons to be learned? Some people say, perhaps the majority of policymakers, at least in Germany, then we need more Europe, in the sense of more national powers, national competences transfer to the European level. Some other people say, go even further and say, now we need to establish the United States of Europe. So making the European Union a centralized state. Some people, like the British Prime Minister, say, and I have some sympathy for that, by the way, say we should try to review what we have achieved and should analyze whether we can make things better. Yeah, there are certain areas where we have certainly room for improvement. I think this question of the so-called finalité, as the French say, the final goal of European integration cannot be answered. It depends on the challenges of the time in which we live. Today, my personal view is that European nations are not prepared for a European state. Simply, people don't want it. Except one, perhaps the Belgians, but they are in favor of a European state because they cannot live with their own state. that is the only. All the other nations, I do not think that they are prepared to abandon their state. I don't think so. And therefore, this is nothing that we can decide. What we have to do is, we have to always make a clear distinction between issues which have to be dealt with at EU level, because the nation state is not strong or capable enough to deal with it, and all the other issues which have to be dealt with at national level, regional level, or local level. And the principle should be that the level of decision making should be as close as possible to the citizens, and not far away in Brussels.
On this note, there is one question I can't stand asking you, and this is red tape or bureaucracy. There are, by the way, plans here in Belarus to fire up to 25–30% of civil servants. And you are one of the few politicians who did speak out about this problem, red tape and bureaucracy in Brussels. Again, I quote you from one of the interviews, I guess. You said that talking about bureaucracy, in any case, the rule is more and more all the time. How big a problem is bureaucracy in the present-day crisis and, you know, in this absence of vision of where the European Union can move on?
This is one of the most difficult structural problems, not only of the European Union. I think it's a structural problem more or less everywhere where you have public administration. I think you have a bureaucracy problem in every state worldwide. I know it from my home country, but in Brussels it has some specific elements. First of all, the bureaucracy in Brussels is highly qualified. These are top people. Yeah, top people. Begins with the language skills. They are normally the best people from their countries coming to Brussels. So the problem is not a lack of quality. The problem is sometimes is the feeling that they know better. Yeah, they know better than the policymakers know. And there is a feeling, especially in the European bureaucracy, that Europe materializes itself in more European rules and regulations. Yeah, the more European rules and regulations you have, the more Europe you have, and the better it is. And this is a big misunderstanding. A big misunderstanding. Number one. And number two, of course, is the daily process of European integration is very much a monopoly of high officials. High officials from member states and high officials from the Commission and from the Council are making deals. I think that more than 90% of all decisions at European level are made without political participation. It might be the same in national legislation. I would not like to examine that everywhere. But in Brussels, of course, it is very obvious. You have, as a commissioner, you have the problem that you are totally dependent on the information you get from the services. But you cannot control the services in the same way as a minister can control his ministry. So this is what I have criticized very sharply. The discussion is still going on, but so far I have not seen a strong will to change it. My final point here. I think a weakness of the whole system is that the Commission itself, as a political body, not the bureaucracy, the political institution, the college of 27 commissioners, is too fragmented, and there was a clear change during the last years. It's now very centralized. It used to be based on the principle of collegiality. It is now a presidential system, very much so. And I think this does not match the idea of European integration fully.
My final question is on something which is of particular interest to the Belarusian audience, I guess, and it's also part of your first portfolio as Commissioner for Enlargement. Just a couple of years ago, here there were lots of talk about the prospects of Belarus somehow and sometime joining the EU. There were also discussions during the presidential campaign. But now the topic has subsided a little bit. There are just a couple of pro-European activists who do talk about that. But we all do understand that there is no perspective for Belarus joining the EU in the nearest future, and it doesn't make lots of sense to talk about that for the future. But just to understand something, you were also asked about this enlargement prospects of Belarus and Ukraine in that interview you gave to Spiegel in 2010. And what you said was that is not on the agenda, but don't forget that both countries are important to us, for example, in terms of energy policy. I'm just curious, what does it mean? I mean, you were asked about enlargement, and you gave an answer about the importance of Belarus and Ukraine in terms of energy policy. What does it mean for Belarus?
I try to explain. First of all, the answer that it is not on the agenda was correct. It's the same in 2013. It's not on the agenda. The situation is even worse. We have something at EU level and in a number of member states which is described as enlargement fatigue. So people have the feeling it was too much and too burdensome, created too many problems, and now we have to wait until we can accept the next round of candidates. But I have to mention here that there are still promises. There is the accession promise, the promise that the Balkan countries can join. We have the accession negotiations with Turkey already running since 2005, without real results so far. And then we have some other countries who are preparing for a pre-accession strategy. So there is still a certain momentum, but there is not a very strong political will on the EU side to support this momentum. Enlargement fatigue is definitely there. For the time being, I think what we should do is to maintain the principle of the open door policy. The open door policy means, according to Article 42 of the European Union Treaty, that the European Union is open for every European nation that wants to join can apply. Of course, conditions must be met, that's obvious. But the point is that the treaty makes no distinction. Yeah? Each and every European nation can apply. No discrimination at all. And therefore we must not allow that a new type of border, even if that border would not be visible on the ground, but it would only exist in our minds, that a new dividing line will be created, and that dividing line, by chance, would be the former western border of the former Soviet Union, except the Baltic countries that already belong to the European Union. And then those living on the eastern side of this line are not eligible, and those living on the western side are. This must not be allowed. This must not be allowed. And to maintain the perspective open, despite the fact that nobody knows when it can be realized, in my view, it's absolutely important. I personally believe that we even should reinforce or re-establish the momentum, because the challenges of the 21st century will require a much stronger home market for our companies than we have today. And we will compete with countries like China, India, with a number of consumers around 1.5 billion. Yeah, much stronger than we are. So size matters. I have mentioned the energy policy in this context because I wanted to tell my friends in Germany and in Brussels that there is not only an interest on the side of political applicants, of possible applicants, but there's also interest on our side, yeah, to have closest possible cooperation, and eventually more than only cooperation with our neighboring countries. Because our neighboring countries are extremely important for our future. Energy is one of the most crucial questions for the political, economic future of the whole of Europe. So that is what I have in my mind. But just to explain that these countries are important for us, yeah, not like coal in the east, important countries, but countries which have a potential, countries which have resources which are important for us, and countries which need our attention, deserve our attention.